The escape pod hissed open, and Alex Winters tumbled out onto the cold, metallic floor of what appeared to be a massive hangar. His head spun as he tried to make sense of his surroundings. The last thing he remembered was his parents' panicked faces as they shoved him into the pod, the ship's alarms blaring in the background. "Mom? Dad?" Alex called out, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. No answer came. Instead, he heard the distant sound of heavy footsteps and unfamiliar, guttural voices approaching. Panic set in as Alex realized he was alone in an unknown place. He scrambled to his feet, his father's oversized leather jacket flapping around him. The jacket had been a goodbye gift when they left Earth, filled with pockets his dad said would be perfect for keeping space treasures. Now, it felt like the only familiar thing in this alien world. Alex's eyes darted around, searching for a hiding spot. The hangar was filled with strange ships, their designs unlike anything he'd seen before. But there, in the corner, he spotted a familiar sight, a maintenance hatch, similar to the ones on his parents' ship. Without a second thought, Alex sprinted towards the hatch. His small size, usually a source of frustration, now became an advantage as he easily slipped into the narrow opening. Just as he pulled the hatch closed behind him, he heard the hangar doors whoosh open. "Scan the area. The unidentified pod must have an occupant," a gravelly voice commanded. Alex held his breath, his heart pounding so loud he was sure they'd hear it. He crawled deeper into the maintenance duct, grateful for all the times he'd played hide and seek in similar spaces on the colony ships. The duct system was a maze, but Alex had always had a good sense of direction. He navigated through the twists and turns, occasionally pausing to listen for any signs of pursuit. As he crawled, he couldn't help but examine his surroundings with curiosity. The walls of the duct were covered in a strange, biolite material that gave off a soft blue glow. Alex reached out to touch it, surprised to find it warm and slightly pulsating. "Cool," he whispered, his scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his fear. After what felt like hours of crawling, Alex came across a larger junction in the duct system. It was big enough for him to sit up, and he took the opportunity to catch his breath and assess his situation. "Okay, Alex," he muttered to himself. What would Mom and Dad do? He tried to recall all the survival tips his parents had drilled into him. First things first, he needed to figure out where he was and find a source of food and water. As if on cue, his stomach growled loudly. Alex winced, hoping the sound wouldn't carry through the ducts. He rummaged through the pockets of his jacket, hoping to find a forgotten snack. Instead, his hand closed around a small, flat device. "My holo pad," Alex exclaimed softly, pulling out the tablet-like device his parents had given him for his last birthday. It was designed to work with most known technologies, a useful tool for space colonists who often encountered various systems. Alex powered on the holo pad, its soft glow light his face in the dim duct. To his relief, it seemed to be functioning normally. He quickly accessed the device's scanning feature, hoping it could give him some information about his surroundings. The scan revealed that he was on some sort of space station, massive in size and teeming with life forms. Most of the information came back as unknown, but Alex was able to decipher enough to understand that he was very, very far from any human colonies. "Great," Alex sighed, "lost in space. Mom's going to kill me if the aliens don't get me first." Just then, a notification popped up on his holo pad. It had detected a compatible system nearby, a cleaning bot recharge station. Alex's eyes lit up. If he could access the station's cleaning bots, he might be able to use them to explore or even create a distraction. With renewed determination, Alex started crawling again, following the directions on his holo pad. As he moved, he couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and excitement. Sure, he was lost and alone on an alien space station, but wasn't this the kind of adventure he'd always dreamed about? Finally, he reached another hatch. Peering through the slats, he saw a room filled with what looked like large, metallic insects. The cleaning bots. They were currently dormant, plugged into charging stations along the walls. Alex took a deep breath. "Here goes nothing," he whispered, and carefully pushed open the hatch. The room was mercifully empty of any alien life forms. Alex slipped out of the duct and approached the nearest cleaning bot. Its design was strange, but he could see similarities to the maintenance robots on the colony ships. He pulled out his holopad and began tapping away, trying to interface with the bot's systems. It was tricky, the coding language unlike anything he'd seen before, but Alex had always had a knack for technology. Bit by bit, he began to make sense of it. What Alex didn't realize, as he worked feverishly to reprogram the cleaning bots, was that his actions were about to set off a chain of events that would change the fate of this alien station, and, ultimately, an entire empire. For now, though, he was just a lost boy, trying to survive in a world beyond his wildest imagination. As the first cleaning bot whirred to life under his command, Alex allowed himself a small smile. Maybe, just maybe, he could find his way home. Little did he know, home would come to mean something very different in the days to come. Alex's fingers flew across his holopad as he accessed the cleaning bot's control systems. At first, he'd only meant to use them for reconnaissance, but as he delved deeper into their programming, a mischievous grin spread across his face. These bots were far more sophisticated than he'd initially thought. "Let's see what you can really do," he whispered, making a few crucial modifications to their base programming. The first bot whirred to life, its sensors glowing a soft purple instead of their usual blue. One by one, the others followed suit, their mechanical limbs twitching with new purpose. The chaos started small. Bot 1 trundled over to a perfectly organized storage unit and, with mechanical precision, began reorganizing it in the most inefficient way possible. Bot 2 discovered a collection of star charts and decided they needed immediate cleaning, scattering them across the floor in what Alex could swear was a pattern resembling a smiley face. Bot 3, perhaps the most ambitious of the lot, managed to wedge itself into a control panel, its cleaning appendages triggering random system activations throughout the station. Lights flickered, doors opened and closed, and somewhere in the distance, artificial gravity briefly reversed. Alex watched from his hiding spot, torn between horror and delight at the mounting mayhem. The station's crew members rushed about in confusion, their alien voices rising in pitch as they tried to make sense of the chaos. Through it all, the cleaning bots continued their duties with unwavering dedication. Alarms began blaring throughout the station, their wailing accompanied by announcements in various alien languages. Alex didn't need to understand the words to know that the situation had escalated beyond his original plan. But there was something oddly satisfying about watching the perfectly ordered station descend into controlled chaos. Through the cacophony of alarms and shouting, Alex heard a new voice, one that carried authority even through the station's communication system. Commander Zethon's presence filled the airways, demanding order and explanations. Alex's heart raced as he realized the gravity of what he'd done. He'd managed to throw an entire alien station into disarray with nothing but a handful of reprogrammed cleaning bots. Part of him wanted to retreat further into the maintenance ducts, to find a quiet corner and wait for everything to blow over. But another part of him, the part that had always gotten him into and out of trouble back in the colonies, knew this was actually an opportunity. If he could prove he understood their technology well enough to cause this chaos, maybe he could also prove he could fix it. Taking a deep breath, Alex emerged from his hiding spot and made his way toward the central platform where most of the chaos was concentrated. Large screens displayed various areas of the station, showing the trail of disruption his bots had created. He couldn't help but feel a twinge of pride at how thoroughly they'd followed his programming. The sound of heavy footsteps approaching made Alex freeze. He turned to see Commander Zethon entering the room, flanked by several guards. The commander was an imposing figure, tall and reptilian, with blue scales that seemed to shimmer under the station's lights. His eyes fixed on Alex immediately, widening in surprise at finding a human child at the center of all this disorder. "You, child," the commander's voice boomed across the room, exactly as authoritative in person as it had been over the intercom. The guards tensed, their weapons at the ready. Alex swallowed hard, his father's jacket suddenly feeling very heavy on his shoulders. This was the moment that would either end very badly or very interestingly. Somehow, he had a feeling it would be the latter. After all, he hadn't just caused random chaos, he'd created a perfectly orchestrated demonstration of his understanding of their systems. Now he just had to convince them of that fact before they decided to throw him out the nearest airlock. The commander's eyes narrowed as he studied Alex, a mix of fury and fascination playing across his alien features. In that moment, Alex realized that sometimes the best defense was simply to be honest about one's capabilities, even if those capabilities had just turned a highly organized space station into what looked like the aftermath of a robotic party gone wrong. Alex stood his ground as Commander Zethan loomed over him, the alien's tail swishing back and forth in what he hoped wasn't a prelude to eating small human children. The cleaning bots, sensing their master's presence, gathered around Alex like loyal pets, their purple sensors glowing softly. "I can fix it," Alex blurted out, his voice surprisingly steady. "All of it. I just needed to get your attention." The commander's scaled face twisted into what might have been amusement or indigestion. "Attention?" he rumbled. "You've certainly managed that, small one. Half my station is in chaos, my crew is in panic, and my cleaning units appear to be dancing." Alex glanced at Bot 3, which was indeed performing what looked suspiciously like a waltz with a waste receptacle. He hadn't programmed that specifically, but he had given them creative freedom in their chaos protocols. "That's actually a really interesting development in their adaptive programming," Alex said, his enthusiasm for technology momentarily overwhelming his fear. "See, I only gave them base parameters for causing disorder, but they've developed their own interpretations. The neural network is far more sophisticated than anything we have in the colonies." The commander held up a clawed hand, silencing Alex's technical rambling. "You understand our systems well enough to reprogram them, yet you use this knowledge to create mischief." "Well, I was scared," Alex admitted. "I didn't know where I was, or who you were, or if you'd help me. But I knew if I could prove I was useful." He trailed off, reaching for his holo pad. "Look, I can show you exactly what I did. It's actually pretty simple once you understand the base code structure." To everyone's surprise, Commander Zethan laughed, a deep, resonating sound that seemed to vibrate through the deck plates. "Kaerx," he called out, "come meet your new charge." From among the guards stepped forward a younger reptilian, his scales a darker shade of blue than the commander's. He moved with a warrior's grace, but had gentler eyes than his companions. "This child will be your responsibility," the commander declared. "He clearly needs supervision, but his skills could be valuable to us." He turned back to Alex. "Now, small one, return my station to order, and we shall discuss your situation properly." Alex's fingers flew across his holo pad, sending new commands to his bot army. One by one, their sensors returned to their original blue color, and they began putting things right with the same efficiency they'd used to cause chaos. As they worked, Kaerx approached Alex, studying him with curious eyes. "I am to be your guardian," he said, his voice surprisingly soft for such an imposing figure. "Though perhaps I should also be your student, given your apparent mastery of our technology." "I'm Alex," he replied, offering his hand as his parents had taught him. After a moment's hesitation, Kaerx took it carefully in his clawed grip. "And I didn't master anything. I just understand how things work sometimes, when they make sense." "When they make sense," Kaerx repeated thoughtfully. "And what of things that don't make sense, young Alex? Like finding oneself alone on an alien station." Alex's shoulders slumped slightly. "That's what I'm trying to figure out. I got separated from my parents during something. I'm not even sure what happened. One minute we were on our colony transport, the next." Commander Zethan, who had been observing the exchange, stepped forward again. "We shall investigate this matter. For now, you will remain under Kaerx's protection. Your skills are impressive, but they must be properly channeled." As if to emphasize his point, Bot 3 wheeled past, still clutching the waste receptacle like a dance partner. "And perhaps," the commander added dryly, "you could teach our maintenance units some more traditional cleaning protocols." Alex couldn't help but smile. He was still lost, still far from home, but somehow he'd managed to turn a desperate situation into something approaching safety. As Carex led him away to what would become his new quarters, Alex patted the pockets of his father's jacket, feeling the familiar weight of his collected treasures. "You know," he said to Carex, "I think this might be the beginning of a really interesting story." Carex looked down at him, mandibles twitching in what Alex would learn was a smile. "Indeed, young one, though I suspect none of us quite realize just how interesting it will become." As they walked through the now settling station, Alex couldn't help but notice how the crew members they passed stared at him with a mixture of fear, respect, and curiosity. He'd wanted to prove he was useful, and instead, he'd proven he was capable of bringing a highly advanced alien station to its knees with nothing but cleaning bots and a child's understanding of their systems. What he didn't know yet was that this was just the first step in a journey that would lead him to heights none of them could imagine. After all, who would have thought that getting lost in space would lead to aliens bowing to a child? But that was a story for another day. For now, Alex had some cleaning bots to reprogram and a new friend to get to know. And somewhere out there, his parents were waiting. He just had to figure out how to find them without accidentally taking over any more alien facilities in the process. Though, given his track record so far, he wasn't making any promises. Turns out alien battle cruisers have the same weakness as my old gaming console. Alex sat cross-legged in his quarters, surrounded by a semicircle of cleaning bots. Their purple sensors blinked in sync as he outlined his plan. Carex stood nearby, his scaled features twisted with concern. "This is dangerous, young Alex," Carex warned. "Commander Voss is not known for his mercy, even to children." "That's why we need proof," Alex replied, pulling a small crystal from his jacket pocket. "Look what I found in the maintenance shaft near the restricted vault." The crystal gleamed, its surface etched with data streams. "It's a security log, but it's encrypted." Carex's eyes widened. "That's military-grade encryption, even our best." "Already cracked it," Alex interrupted, grinning. "Remember when I said the station systems reminded me of my old gaming console? Both use similar authentication protocols. The trick isn't breaking the code, it's making the system think you're supposed to be there." He connected the crystal to his holo-pad, and streams of data filled the air around them. Supply manifests, transfer orders, and private communications all pointing to a massive embezzlement scheme orchestrated by Commander Voss and his inner circle. "The cleaning bots have been my eyes and ears," Alex explained. "They've recorded everything. The missing supplies, the secret meetings, even the coordinates of where they've hidden the stolen resources." Carex studied the data, his warrior's training evident in how quickly he grasped the tactical implications. "This is enough to bring down half the command structure, but how do you plan to use it?" Alex's grin widened as he turned to Bot 3, which still occasionally attempted to dance when it thought no one was watching. "Remember how I caused chaos before? This time, we're going to be more strategic about it." The next few hours were a flurry of activity as Alex and his mechanical allies put their plan into motion. The cleaning bots dispersed throughout the station, each carrying a small modification to their programming. They weren't just cleaning anymore, they were gathering intelligence, planting evidence, and preparing for the biggest system hack the station had ever seen. Alex knew he had only one shot at this. If he failed, Commander Voss would make sure he disappeared quietly into the vast emptiness of space. But if he succeeded, well, that was almost scarier to think about. As the station's artificial day cycle dimmed to night, Alex took a deep breath and activated his holo-pad. It was time to show these aliens exactly what a human child could do when backed into a corner. "Ready?" he asked Carex, who had chosen to stand by him despite the risks. The warrior nodded, his scaled hand resting protectively on Alex's shoulder. "Ready, young commander." Alex's fingers danced across the holopad's surface, and across the station, hundreds of cleaning bots simultaneously sprang into action. The game was about to begin, and the stakes couldn't be higher. What happened next would be talked about in whispered tones throughout the Empire for years to come. After all, it's not every day that a child's understanding of video games brings an entire military command structure to its knees. The aftermath of the rebellion unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony. Commander Voss sat in the detention center, his once pristine uniform now stained with cleaning solution, while Alex stood in the command center, surrounded by his unlikely allies. "What do we do now?" asked one of the crew members, their voice tinged with uncertainty. The question hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Alex looked down at his holopad, where Bot 3 was sending him a constant stream of data about the station's operations. "First, we need to recover everything Voss stole," he said, his young voice carrying the weight of authority. "The cleaning bots have mapped every hidden compartment and secret storage area." Carrick stepped forward, his protective stance never wavering. "The crew will follow your lead, young commander. But remember, leadership is more than exposing corruption, it's about rebuilding trust." Alex nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on his small shoulders. He turned to address the gathered crew, trying to channel the confidence his parents had always shown in difficult situations. "I know I'm just a kid," he began, "and I know this is weird. But we can make this station better than it was. We just need to work together." The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. The cleaning bots, now operating under new protocols, helped coordinate the recovery of stolen resources. Alex's understanding of the station systems proved invaluable as they restructured command protocols and security measures. What surprised everyone most was how naturally leadership came to the young human. His solutions were often unconventional, drawing from games he'd played or stories he'd read, but they worked. Where adults saw rigid hierarchies, Alex saw possibilities for cooperation. As the station's day cycle began anew, Alex stood at the main viewport, watching the stars. Carrick approached, carrying a data pad with official reports. "The other stations are responding to our transmission," Carrick said. "They're interested in your methods of leadership." Alex turned, a mischievous glint in his eye. "Does this mean I accidentally started something bigger than just fixing one station?" Carrick's mandibles twitched in what Alex now recognized as amusement. "Indeed, young one. It seems your cleaning bot revolution has caught the attention of the entire sector." As if on cue, Bot 3 wheeled past, still occasionally attempting to dance when it thought no one was watching. Alex couldn't help but smile. He might still be lost in space, but somehow he'd found a way to make a difference. And somewhere out there, his parents were still waiting. But now, when he finally found them, he'd have quite a story to tell. "You know what, Carrick?" Alex said, patting Bot 3's dome. "I think this is just the beginning of something amazing." The stars seemed to twinkle in agreement, as if the universe itself was curious to see what this lost child would do next. After all, who would have thought that the key to reforming an alien station would be a human boy with a knack for reprogramming cleaning bots? But then again, sometimes the best leaders are the ones who never meant to lead at all. Dad always said to clean up my messes. This mess just happens to be an empire. Alex stood at the viewport of the command center, his small frame dwarfed by the vastness of space before him. The stars seemed to twinkle with approval at the young leader who had, against all odds, successfully defended the station against Commander Voss's assault. But as the adrenaline of victory faded, a new challenge loomed on the horizon. "Carrick," Alex called, his voice carrying a weight beyond his years. "What's the status on the outer sectors?" The reptilian warrior approached, datapad in hand. "Reports are coming in, young commander. It seems our victory has inspired others. Several neighboring stations are pledging allegiance to your empire." Alex's eyes widened. "Empire? I didn't mean to start an empire. I just wanted to keep everyone safe." Carrick's mandibles twitched in what Alex had come to recognize as amusement. Intentions and outcomes often diverge, especially in matters of leadership. You've given hope to those who've long suffered under corrupt rule. As if on cue, Bot 3 wheeled into the command center, its sensors blinking excitedly. It projected a holographic map of the sector, showing a spreading network of allied stations. "This is a lot," Alex muttered, running a hand through his messy hair. "How am I supposed to manage all this? I'm just a kid." "A kid who's proven himself a capable leader," Carrick's reminded him gently. "But you're right to be concerned. With great power comes great responsibility." Alex nodded, his mind racing. "We need to establish some kind of system, right? To make sure everything runs smoothly and fairly." Just then, an alert flashed on the main screen. A transmission from one of the newly allied stations. Alex took a deep breath and accepted the call. The screen filled with the image of an alien official, their multiple eyes blinking rapidly. "Great Liberator," they began, their translator struggling to keep up with their excited clicks and whistles. "We seek your guidance. Our station has long operated on a system of indentured servitude. What would you have us do with our workforce?" Alex felt his stomach drop. Slavery. They were talking about slavery. He looked to Carrick, who nodded gravely. This was the reality of the empire he'd inadvertently inherited. We don't do that here," Alex said firmly, surprised by the strength in his own voice. "All beings deserve freedom and fair treatment. Release your workers immediately and establish fair labor practices." The alien official looked taken aback. "But our economy." "We'll adapt," Alex interrupted. "Send representatives here. We'll work out a transition plan together." As the transmission ended, Alex slumped into the commander's chair, feeling the weight of his words. He'd just fundamentally changed the lives of thousands, maybe millions, with a single order. "You did the right thing," Carrick assured him, placing a clawed hand on his shoulder. "I hope so," Alex replied. "But this is just the beginning, isn't it? There's going to be so much more to fix." Carrick nodded solemnly. "Indeed, but you won't face it alone. You have allies now, and a growing empire at your back." Alex stood, squaring his shoulders. He may have been small in stature, but in that moment, he felt the full weight of his responsibility. "All right then, let's get to work. We've got an empire to clean up." As he began issuing orders and organizing teams to handle the influx of requests and reports, Alex couldn't help but think of his parents. What would they say if they could see him now? Lost in space, yes, but also at the helm of a burgeoning interstellar nation. One thing was certain, this was going to be a much bigger mess to clean up than any he'd faced before. But as he looked around at the dedicated crew and the loyal bots at his command, Alex felt a surge of determination. He may be a small king, but he was ready to tackle these big problems head-on. Little did he know, the challenges ahead would test not just his leadership skills, but the very core of who he was and what he believed in. The stars watched on, silent witnesses to the birth of an empire led by a child with a heart full of hope and a head full of impossible ideas. The command center buzzed with activity as reports flooded in from across Alex's accidental empire. Holographic displays showed dozens of stations, each one presenting its own unique challenges. Bot 3 wheeled anxiously between workstations, its sensors flashing with concern. "Young Commander," a reptilian officer called out, "Station Nexus 7 reports civil unrest. The former overseers are refusing to release their workers." Before Alex could respond, another alert chimed. "Station Helios reports economic instability. Their markets are in freefall." Carrick watched as Alex absorbed the information, noting how the boy's small hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. "Perhaps," Carrick suggested gently, "it's time to implement what you called the colony solution." Alex's eyes lit up. "Yes, that's it." He jumped onto his commander's chair, standing on it to address the entire command center. "Listen up, everyone. We're going to do this the way the colonies did it." He pulled out his holopad, projecting a larger display for all to see. in the colonies. Everyone contributes, everyone benefits. We had work rotations, shared resources, and most importantly, education programs. But the stations are not colonies, someone protested. No, they're better, Alex replied, his voice filled with conviction. We have more resources, more technology, and more people. We just need to organize it properly. His fingers flew across the holo pad as he outlined his plan. First, we establish emergency resource sharing between stations. No one starves while others have surplus. Second, we start immediate education programs using our network. Knowledge is power, and everyone deserves access to it. Carrick watched in amazement as Alex's childhood experiences in the colonies transformed into a workable governmental system. The boy's simple, straightforward approach cut through centuries of complicated bureaucracy. And the cleaning bots? Carrick asked, knowing Alex always had a special role for his mechanical allies. Alex grinned. They're going to be our observers and helpers. They can't be bribed, they don't play favorites, and they're really good at spotting things that don't belong. As if on cue, Bot 3 performed a happy spin, its sensors glowing brightly. But most importantly, Alex continued, his voice growing serious, we need to show everyone that this new way works. Not just tell them, show them. He turned to the communications officer. Connect me to all stations. It's time for their new leader to address them properly. The command center fell silent as Alex straightened his father's jacket and cleared his throat. Across the Empire, screens lit up with the image of a small human boy, standing tall despite his size. Hi everyone, he began, his young voice carrying across the stars. I know things are scary right now. Change is always scary, but we're going to get through this together. The silence following Alex's speech felt eternal. Carrick stood beside him, watching as the young commander's words rippled across the Empire. Bot 3 had stopped its usual dancing, its sensors fixed on the array of screens showing reactions from various stations. Then it happened. From Station Nexus 7, the first response came. The former overseers, moved by the simple wisdom in Alex's words, began releasing their workers. On Helios, market traders started organizing resource-sharing programs based on the colony model. It's working, Alex whispered, almost afraid to break the spell of the moment. They're actually listening. Carrick nodded, his scaled features softening with pride. They hear not just your words, young one, but the truth behind them. You speak of hope, but you also offer a practical path forward. The command center erupted into activity as reports flooded in from across the stations. Communities were organizing themselves, following Alex's guidelines but adapting them to their unique situations. The cleaning bots deployed across the Empire became symbols of the new order, their presence ensuring transparency and fairness. Young Commander, called out the communications officer. We're receiving an unusual transmission. It's from the Imperial Center itself. Alex felt his heart skip a beat. The Imperial Center, the heart of the civilization he'd accidentally begun reforming. He straightened his father's jacket and nodded. Put them through. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a council of the most powerful beings in this sector of space. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to concern as they regarded the small human child who had caused such massive changes in their realm. Greetings, young reformer, the head counselor spoke, their voice carrying across light years. We have been watching your activities with great interest. Alex swallowed hard but stood his ground. I hope you like what you've seen, because we're not going back to the old way. A murmur ran through the council. The head counselor raised an appendage for silence. No, they said, I don't believe we are. Your methods, while unconventional, have proven remarkably effective. The council wishes to formally recognize your authority over the reformed sectors. Alex blinked in surprise. Really? Just like that? Just like that, the head counselor confirmed, with what might have been a smile. Sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from the most unexpected sources. We look forward to working with you, Emperor Alexander. As the transmission ended, Alex turned to Carex, his eyes wide. "Emperor, did they just make this official?" Carex bowed slightly, a gesture of respect rather than subservience. "They recognized what we already knew. You have built something remarkable here, young one. Something that will last." Alex looked around the command center, at the loyal crew who had followed him through this transformation, at Bot 3 who had started it all with a simple dance, and at the screens showing his growing empire. He thought of his parents, wherever they were, and hoped they would be proud of what their lost little boy had accomplished. "Well," he said, straightening up, "I guess we'd better get back to work. This empire isn't going to reform itself." As the command center returned to its usual buzz of activity, Alex couldn't help but smile. He might be the smallest emperor in history, but sometimes the biggest changes come from the smallest beginnings. And somewhere out in space, his parents were still waiting to be found. But now, when he finally reached them, he'd have quite a story to tell about cleaning up his biggest mess yet. The stars twinkled their approval as Alex's accidental empire continued to grow, guided by the wisdom of a child who simply wanted everyone to work together, just like they did in the colonies. Finding your parents is harder when you accidentally become an alien emperor. Alex sat in his private quarters, surrounded by star charts and data streams, Bot 3 faithfully at his side. The cleaning bot sensors pulsed softly as it projected a holographic map of known space, countless dots representing the thousands of colony ships that had ventured into the unknown. One of those dots was his parents' ship. He just had to figure out which one. "Any matches?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Bot 3's sensors dimmed slightly, a gesture that had become its way of saying no. Carex entered the room, carrying a data pad. Even after 3 months as emperor, Alex still insisted his quarters remain open to his first and most trusted advisor. The reptilian warrior's scales had a particular sheen today, one that Alex had learned meant important news. "Young Emperor," Carex began, then caught himself. "Alex, we've received a transmission. It's unusual." Alex perked up. After countless dead ends and false leads, anything unusual was worth investigating. "What kind of unusual?" "It appears to be an old human emergency beacon. The signal pattern matches colonial frequencies, but what?" Alex was already on his feet, father's jacket swishing around him as he moved to examine Carex's data pad. "But it's coming from the restricted zone, the area of space that even the Imperial Center avoids." Alex studied the signal data, his heart racing. The pattern was familiar, definitely colonial in origin. He'd seen similar emergency beacons during safety drills on the colony ships. But this one was different. Hidden in the standard distress call was another pattern, one that made his breath catch. "That's Mom's code," he whispered, fingers tracing the subtle variation in the signal. "She used to encode messages to me in my birthday cards like this. It's her." Carex's expression darkened. "Alex, the restricted zone is forbidden for good reason. Even with your imperial authority, sending ships there would be problematic." "Then we won't send ships," Alex replied, a familiar glint in his eye. "We'll send bots." Bot 3 perked up, its sensors flashing excitedly. Across the room, several other cleaning bots that had been quietly maintaining the quarters stopped their work, turning to face their young commander. "Alex," Carex warned, "even modified cleaning bots cannot survive the anomalies in the restricted zone. The energy distortions alone would affect anything with a standard power source," Alex finished. "But what if we didn't use standard power? What if we used something else? Something that even the Imperial Center doesn't know about?" He reached into one of his father's jacket pockets and pulled out a small, crystalline object. It pulsed with an inner light, casting strange shadows on the walls. Carex's eyes widened. "Is that something I found in Commander Voss's secret vault?" Alex nodded. "I've been studying it. It's not just a power source, it's alive, somehow, and I think it might be exactly what we need." Bot 3 rolled closer, its sensors scanning the crystal with obvious curiosity. The other bots followed suit, forming a circle around Alex and his mysterious discovery. "If we can adapt this technology," Alex continued, his young voice filled with determination, "we can send the bots into the restricted zone. They can find my parents, or at least find out what happened to them." Carex studied his young emperor's face, seeing the familiar mix of brilliant planning and reckless hope that had somehow built an empire. "The Imperial Council won't approve." "Then we don't tell them," Alex said simply. "Sometimes it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. Dad taught me that." As if to emphasize his point, Bot 3 began to dance its signature waltz, causing Alex to smile despite the gravity of the situation. Even in the most serious moments, his mechanical friends knew how to lift his spirits. "Besides," Alex added, turning back to the star charts, "what's the point of being an emperor if I can't bend a few rules to find my family?" The crystal pulsed in his hand, as if agreeing with his logic. In the corner of the room, the cleaning bots had already begun organizing themselves for what would surely be their most important mission yet. Carrick sighed, but Alex could see the hint of a smile in his mandibles. "Very well, young Emperor. Where do we begin?" Alex grinned, already pulling up technical schematics on his holopad. "First, we need to figure out how to merge this crystal's energy with the bot's systems. Then we find out what's really hiding in the restricted zone." The stars seemed to twinkle more brightly through the viewport, as if they too were curious to see what this small emperor would do next. After all, the greatest adventures often begin with a simple question: how far would you go to find your way home? The workshop hummed with activity as Alex and his team worked to modify the cleaning bots. 5 of his most trusted mechanical companions lay partially disassembled on workbenches, their standard power cores removed to make way for something extraordinary. "Careful with the crystal integration," Alex instructed, his small hands steady as he worked with tools nearly as big as his arms. "The energy signature needs to be perfect, or they won't survive the anomalies." Carrick watched from nearby, monitoring the energy readings. "The crystal's output is unusual. It seems to adapt to each bot differently." "That's what makes it perfect," Alex replied, carefully connecting the crystal fragments to Bot 3's primary systems. "The restricted zone isn't just dangerous because it's unpredictable, it's dangerous because it changes. We need power sources that can change too." As if in response, the crystal fragment in Bot 3 pulsed with a soft light, its energy spreading through the bot's circuits like liquid starlight. One by one, each modified bot came online, their sensors now glowing with an otherworldly purple-gold hue. "They're beautiful," Alex whispered, watching as his mechanical friends adjusted to their new power source. Bot 3 performed an experimental twirl, its movements somehow more fluid than before. "And dangerous," Carrick added. "The Imperial Council will notice this level of technology. They monitor everything in the Empire." Alex grinned, pulling out his holopad. "Not everything. Remember those backdoor protocols we found in Commander Voss's files? I've modified them. As far as anyone else can tell, this is just routine maintenance." The young Emperor turned to address his enhanced cleaning bots. "All right, team. This is going to be our biggest mission yet. We're not just cleaning up a mess, we're finding my family." Each bot's sensors pulsed in acknowledgement, their new crystal cores humming with barely contained energy. They had been reprogrammed with the most advanced scanning protocols Alex could devise, along with emergency procedures for every scenario he could imagine. "The signal is getting stronger," Alex noted, checking the latest readings. "But it's also shifting, like it's trying to tell us something more." Carrick leaned in to study the data. "These patterns, they're not random. The anomalies in the restricted zone, they're being influenced by something. Or someone," Alex added quietly. "Mom was always brilliant with signal processing. What if they're not just trapped in there? What if they're trying to control it?" Before Carrick could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red emergency lights bathed the workshop in an eerie glow. Imperial vessels approaching, the station's AI announced. Council inspection imminent. Alex looked at his modified bots, then at Carrick's, determination setting his jaw. We're out of time. We have to launch now. Alex, Carrick's warned, if we're caught. Then we better not get caught, Alex replied, already initiating the launch sequence. Besides, sometimes the best way to hide something is to do it right in front of everyone. The cleaning bots moved into position, their crystal cores pulsing in sync. Through the workshop viewport, Alex could see the Imperial ships approaching, their massive forms casting shadows across the stars. It was time to find out if his greatest gamble yet would pay off. After all, who would suspect that the key to unlocking the restricted zone's mysteries lay in the humble programming of a few cleaning bots? As the launch countdown began, Alex clutched his father's jacket closer. "Hold on, Mom and Dad," he whispered. "We're coming." The Imperial inspection team strode through the station's corridors, their ornate uniforms gleaming under the emergency lights. Alex stood in the command center, trying his best to look like a proper emperor despite his racing heart, and the cleaning bot maintenance report clutched in his small hands. Emperor Alexander, the lead inspector announced, mandibles clicking with barely concealed suspicion. "We detected unusual energy signatures from your station." "Really?" Alex replied, gesturing to the maintenance report. "We're just running standard cleaning protocols. See? Everything's documented." Behind him, through the viewport, 5 small shapes accelerated away from the station, their modified crystal cores masking them from standard sensors. Bot 3 led the formation, its enhanced systems already collecting data about the restricted zone's outer boundary. The lead inspector studied the report while Alex held his breath. Carrick stood nearby, ready to intervene if necessary. But Alex had planned this carefully. The report was perfect, showing exactly what they expected to see and nothing more. "Very well," the inspector finally said. "Though I must ask why your cleaning protocols require such precise trajectories toward the restricted zone." Alex shrugged, channeling every ounce of childish innocence he could muster. "The space lanes get dirty too. Can't have debris affecting trade routes, right?" Just then, his holopad buzzed silently against his chest. The bots had reached the zone's boundary. Alex forced himself to remain still, even as his heart threatened to burst from excitement. The inspector opened their mouth to respond, but was interrupted by a sudden cascade of alerts across the command center's screens. The restricted zone was changing. "What's happening?" demanded the inspector, all pretense of routine inspection forgotten. Alex watched in amazement as waves of energy rippled through the forbidden space, creating patterns he recognized from his mother's encoded messages. The cleaning bots, nearly invisible to normal sensors, were following those patterns, diving deeper into the zone's mysteries. "It's beautiful," Alex whispered, earning strange looks from the inspection team. Then, through the chaos of energy waves and shifting anomalies, a new signal emerged. Clear, strong, and unmistakably human. "This is Dr. Sarah Winters of the Colonial Research Vessel Horizon," a familiar voice filled the command center. "To anyone receiving this message, we found something extraordinary." Alex's knees went weak. "Mom," he breathed. The inspection team forgotten, Alex rushed to the communications console. His fingers flew across the controls, establishing a secure channel through the network of cleaning bots. "Mom, Dad, it's me, Alex." There was a moment of static. Then, "Alex? Oh my God, James, it's Alex. But how? Where are you?" "It's kind of a long story," Alex replied, grinning as Bot 3 transmitted visual confirmation of the Horizon's location. The ship was intact, suspended in a pocket of stable space within the zone. "I might have accidentally become an emperor while looking for you." The silence that followed was broken by his father's laughter. "That's my boy, always cleaning up messes and making bigger ones." The Imperial inspection team watched in stunned silence as Alex coordinated the rescue operation. The cleaning bots, their crystal cores pulsing with power, created a stable corridor through the restricted zone's chaos. "Young Emperor," the lead inspector finally spoke. "You do realize this violates numerous Imperial protocols." Alex turned to face them, standing as tall as his small frame would allow. "Sometimes protocols need to be cleaned up too. Besides, aren't you curious about what my parents found out there?" Hours later, as the Horizon was safely towed into the station's dock, Alex stood waiting with Carix by his side. The cleaning bots had returned triumphant, their mission accomplished. "You know," Carix mused, "most emperors would have sent armies into the restricted zone. You sent cleaning bots." Alex smiled, watching as the airlock cycled. "Sometimes the biggest problems need the simplest solutions. Besides, Bot 3 really wanted to show my parents its dance moves." As if on cue, Bot 3 performed a perfect pirouette just as the airlock doors opened, revealing Alex's parents for the first time in months. "Mom, Dad," Alex ran forward, nearly tripping over his father's oversized jacket. As his parents embraced him, tears streaming down their faces, Alex realized something profound. He might have become an emperor, reformed an empire, and unlocked the secrets of the restricted zone. But in the end, the greatest adventure had been finding his way back to family. And somewhere in the command center, Bot 3 continued its celebratory dance, its crystal core pulsing with the rhythm of a story well concluded. After all, what's an empire without a family to share it with?